Okay, thank you. I've got a couple of, I'd like to understand a bit more, please, about the potential impact on the Stubbington bypass. I've lived here for 28 years, and since I arrived, we've talked about the Stubbington bypass. I'm sensing that a potential benefit, I feel like get shot down in flames by saying a potential benefit in connection with this, but the potential benefit is that these guys are going to pay for a substantial proportion of the bypass from Davis Gosport Road around to Peak Lane, leaving sort of the other half from Peak Lane across still to be funded. So when you could say a few words about, if we say no to this, does it mean that whoever's looking at the bypass can say, well, they've turned down 50% of the funding there, they can't really be that serious about it? Or could we not go the other way and say to these guys, hey, we don't want this to happen, but if it did, fund the whole flipping lot? Just, could you say a bit more about, potential benefits and negatives about how this might impact bypass?
Of course, yeah.
That might be good.
Yeah, you're quite right. The Stubbington bypass has been talked about for many, many years, but a couple of years ago I did put it back on the agenda for Hampshire County Council, and things have now moved to an extent where we now have an agreed route for the bypass, and it has planning permission. So, that is a huge step forward from nowhere, but what it does not have is the funding of £30 million, and what it is that it takes to fund. So yeah, I'm sure some would say tempting to think about getting half the bypass or 40% or whatever it is that this would provide. But people would probably be more interested to be saying, well, what are you actually doing about getting the funding for the bypass despite this? And where's that going to come from? Yeah. There is a bid in now, which is it's called the Local Enterprise Partnership, which is Local Enterprise Partnership, which is a group of businesses, people, higher education, further education, councils, etc., who have put a bid together for the funding for the bypass. What we need to be able to raise is local funding to go with our request to the government that they pay a very significant chunk of it. So Hampshire County Council is at the moment working out how, from our own resources locally, we can fund a significant amount of the bypass, so then it looks more reasonable to be asking the government for the rest. That work is being done at the moment. We'll have an answer, I think, in June, as to whether we're going to get funding for the bypass, which will probably be before this gets determined, if that helps. So we will know within not too many months whether we can raise the money we need without development for the Stubbington bypass.
So does that mean then we'll get a decision in June as to whether we're going to get funding for the complete bypass with traditional routes and with a government contribution?
Yes.
And which will be before the decision is made on this. And therefore, that might, to some residents, put this in a different light, and might get a different reaction from residents if they've been faced with the position of the bypass funding is not on the card, and this is possibly the only way of getting it.
Yeah, it might indeed.
Do you understand?